morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Money Truth Moments with our very own Judy Copenbarger. How are you, Judy?
I'm great. It's nice to see you, Carlos. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. It's a great show today, folks. I'm glad that you guys are here. Let me just start off by saying that if you're not following the show or you're not following Judy, you guys need to do so. And we'll explain to you more why a little bit later. But make sure that you follow her at judycopenbarger.com. She's got all of her social media links there. A lot of great resources, which again, we're going to talk a little bit later because we've got a really great show for you guys today. Today, we are talking about financial wealth planning and legacy. It's a big topic, and the best person to talk about this is our very own Money Whisperer, Judy Copenbarger.
I like that.
Intro, right?
Money Whisperer. That's awesome. Yes, I am a Money Whisperer. Yes.
So hey, I know we have a jam-packed show. So what do you say we get started? Let's talk about this financial wealth planning, right? It's a scary subject. Some of us are at an age where we've never even talked about planning, right? Mm-hmm. We're getting more to our retirement years, and it's like, what do I do now? Or those that are also starting. So I want to make sure that we capture both spectrums. You know, those that are getting started, those that are getting closer to retirement, that don't have that plan or that legacy.
Absolutely. Well, you've got to have help. So you've got to have planning help. You've got to have some kind of a background in school, maybe experience in life where you had a family that involved you in finances early and you got to learn. You've got to have help. So the biggest question that I usually have is, how do I find a professional that will serve me well and give me this help? And we have a 4-H method for figuring that out. So I'd like to share that with you. And the 4 H's are head, heart, hands, and how. And that's the best way. You know, if you go online, there's going to be all kinds of recommendation of questions you could ask a professional if you're vetting them or interviewing them, or credentials to look for, things like that. But really, if you look for those 4 things, you're going to find a good fit that will be sustainable for you.
Excellent. So let's talk about in our process with the 4-H. Take us through that process. Let's say I'm somewhat knowledgeable about planning my future. I know what I want, it's in my head, but I don't know how to really even get started on a plan. Walk us through that.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk about the 4 H's or do you want to talk about where the planning starts?
You know what? I'll leave it up to you. Let's talk a little bit about the 4-H, but let's lead into the plan, utilizing that.
Absolutely. Well, a plan always has to start with the outcome, the end game in mind. What is the outcome that you want? So any journey that you take, you've got to figure out what the destination is first. You don't want to figure out where the first gas station is if you're driving to Texas, right? So where do I want to end up in Texas? And then you plan, how long do I need to get there? Where will I get gas? Do I need to stop along the way to sleep? Where will I get my snacks? You know, things like that. So you've got to think of the outcome, and financial planning is the same. What is it that I want to accomplish as a family, as a business? What do we want to get done? Where are we going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years at the end? Do we want to end where we live just until the money runs out? Or do we want to have something left over? You know, you want to time it right when you're planning financially, for sure. So you just got to look at, what is the end game? What is the outcome that I want? Where do I want the money to go? And what do I want it to do for me and the family?
So as I'm going through this, and I'm going to get to I don't want to talk about the legacy part just yet, because this is also something very important on there too. When you look at financial wealth planning, we've talked about the 4-H's. We've talked about in previous shows. How do you determine who's the best fit for you to help you in that journey, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Please remind some of our audience, what are some of the questions that we should be asking when we're looking for, I would want to say maybe that partner, right, in that journey, that financial partner is going to guide us from step 1 to step 10, whatever, how many steps there are, but you know that you can count on them. I know that folks are very hesitant when it comes to talking to someone about that.
Of course. Well, obviously, usually people start with their head, right? You know, what do they know? What is their experience? What credentials do they have? What degrees do they have? What school did they go to? What firm are they with? You know, you think about those kind of things. And so that's the head knowledge. That's the technique that they have. That's the technology that they have. That's what they know. And usually people start there, and then that's kind of the end. It's like, I'm impressed you went to Harvard. Well, that doesn't mean that they're a good fit for you, or that they will have relevant information for you. Of course, they're smart and they're great and they have these great credentials, but it might not be just about that. You need to go past the head and look at their heart.
So as far as not every financial planner is created equal. We know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, would you say that it would be more beneficial to have somebody that's more focused on a specific area, or somebody that has a specific area but it has the resources behind them to help you in investments, help you in retirement, help you in whatever else that you need to plan for as well too?
Absolutely. That's a how question. That's H number 4. What is their approach? What kind of staff do they have? What kind of reports will they provide? Are they going to be educating you, or are you going to delegate and then they're just going to do it for you? Like you hire a trainer and they say, do these things. So that's kind of the approach. And that's the 4th H, which is how they do their work.
So tell us a little bit about also, as far as you talked about experience, right? So Harvard doesn't mean anything if you're not the right fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
20, 30 years of experience doesn't mean anything if you have 20 or 30 years of doing the wrong thing, right? So,
Right.
but there's also that, and you mentioned this before in other episodes where we talk about maybe you don't get the guy that's just 2 years out of college or 2 years into the business, right? Talk a little bit about that longevity or experience when we're looking for a financial planner.
Mm-hmm. It makes a big difference. And I do have a background in finance, but also law and estate planning and trust and things like that. So I would say it takes in these very technical, very process-oriented areas of life, the financial life that you have, I would say 10 years is a minimum that you would want for experience. Very, very minimum. I know a lot of 10-year attorneys that are very green, a lot of 10-year financial advisors or wealth managers or planners that are very green still at 10 years. Like they've done the same thing, for 10 years worth of reps, but they don't have the breadth of knowledge that they need. They stay in one little lane, and you ask them a question about something else and it's like, I don't know, they're Googling. You don't want an expert that's Googling stuff. You really don't.
Yeah.
So 10 years is a minimum. I would say 15, 20 years is a really good sweet spot, and beyond, obviously. Now, the danger, if you go too far, they've been in practice 35, 40, 45 years, is they might not keep up with that relevance piece. Maybe what they did in the 80s, was really great, but they haven't really gone back to school or updated technology or information since then. And there's some people like that out there too. So you got to find that sweet spot where there's enough experience and expertise to really serve you well.
Great. And so as far as when we're talking about also relationships, that's key, right? Let's just say I'm 21 years old. I'm starting my career. I'm starting my life. I'm walking in to see someone like Judy, walking into the front door. You've heard some of the advice she's just given you. Tell me what is, as a financial advisor, what would be some things that you would recommend, or best practices? Obviously, everyone is different, right? But as a general rule, there's got to be some things that you want somebody to get started with, like putting things together, right? I'm 21 again. I'm just starting out my career. What would you say to a young person, just getting started, or even a young couple, right? There's about maybe to get married as well too.
Well, I would say get an expert to help you craft the plan. Even if it's a simple plan, you can build on it over the years. That would be my first advice. But you want to think about things in terms of time. So you have the now, the soon, and the later. So financial planning for now would be getting your budget in order, getting your expenses in order, allocating the cash flow as it comes in from your job, your salary, your businesses. What do I do for right now with that money? And then you have soon. And soon is where you're going to have your specific goals. So what goals do I have? Do I need to replace a car in a couple of years? Are we going to buy our first house, our first condo? Are we going to have an anniversary trip? Do I need to save money for tuition for myself or for a child? What are we going to do in the mid-range and short term with goals? And that's your soon money. I'll need that money pretty soon. And then long term is going to be later, right? Now, soon, and later. So what am I going to need down the road? That's where the retirement planning comes in. And you can take advantage if you're working, if you're an employee, you can take advantage of retirement programs at work. You can take advantage of IRAs. There's also all kinds of IRS goodies, programs that allow you to save for retirement later. And you get tax advantages for doing that. And so that would be the later money. So you have now, soon, and later. And as a couple, or as, just starting out, first job out of college, if you're always thinking in terms of the money bucket that I have, I need it for these 3 time frames, you're always going to have plenty. If you just plan that way, it's just such a great way to start. And I can't hear you, Carlos. I think we lost your audio.
Here we go. Thank you again, folks, for joining us this morning. We are talking to our money whisperer, Judy Copenbarger. I think it's now a good time, too, to also talk a little bit about, if you're not following Judy, you need to visit her website at judycopenbarger.com. I think today we're talking about financial wealth planning and legacy, but I want to have Judy talk a bit about her website. What are some of those, folks, free resources? That's the key word. It's the F word, free resources. Come on. So, but I want you to share with folks really what's on your website. Talk to them about those very valuable wisdom resources that you have.
Of course, everybody loves free stuff, and there really is free stuff. No hooks, no bait and switch. It's free stuff. So for me, this is legacy. I want to put out into the world information, resources, videos, knowledge that works. And so I've done this for enough years where I figured out what works and how to communicate some of these concepts that can be really scary or confusing or complex. And so I've broken all that down into information that people can digest, so they can take a little piece at a time, take a little class, just take a little video at a time, and learn what you need to know to ask the right questions. Then you can get on the right course to make sure that you achieve your goals and your retirement is in place and you have financial success in your life. So I put all that together. I've got a website, judycopenbarger.com, that has all kinds of articles and videos. There are YouTube videos if you like to go on YouTube. On the judycopenbarger.com website, you have access to the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program. And that course is set up where you can watch classes in every area of personal finance, whether it's insurances or estate planning or business entities or cash flow. What's a bond? What's a stock? What's a mutual fund? How do I figure out what kind of mutual funds in my 401k would be the best allocation? So all of those things are broken down into very simple to follow classes that build into courses on the Money, Truth, and Life online mastery program. So it's free. So go there, watch your classes, educate yourself, do better, because when you know better, you do better. And that's what I wish for you.
Awesome. And I appreciate you sharing that, folks. I know that some of you guys are just joining us. Please make sure that you watch the beginning of the show as well. Today, we are discussing financial wealth planning and legacy. We touched on some things regarding financial wealth planning. We're going to be moving on here shortly into the legacy piece. But before we do, as we continue to talk about wealth and wealth planning, talk to us about, or share with us, I should say. I know you've seen some, or you've dealt with horror stories to help people get back on track, right? And I want you to share this because it's also a reality check for folks who are kind of on the fence, like, oh, I'll get around to doing this. It's like estate planning, and then something happens, and your whole world flips because now what do I do, right? So you could have prevented a lot of things, but you didn't. So that's why I want you to share some of this in some situations where you've helped out folks in dire situations, basically.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is how we use our language. So I wouldn't say you're a mess, you're a catastrophe, you've had an implosion, you really suck at doing money, they probably wouldn't come at it from there. But what I do really emphasize we've all made mistakes, and sometimes we just need a reboot. We just need a redo. We just need a new start, a fresh start. And again, when you know better, you do better. So I've helped people recover from all kinds of implosions, right? Reboots. It might be that there was a life change that happened, a loss of a job that you didn't see coming, an economic downturn where the industry just went away. We saw a lot the last couple of years with this pandemic. People that had their life on track and their finances figured out, all of a sudden it's changed. Their business no longer exists. Their job no longer exists, or they can't have access to go do the job that they had. That's a big change. That causes a reboot. It might be that you go back to school. It might be that you have triplets and all of a sudden we're a little dedicated to the family, right? And we're not outside making the kind of money we were making. Or when folks get married, sometimes one spouse will choose to take care of the house and the home and the children for a while. Maybe not forever, but for a while. So when you have those life changes, and they're not always for bad reasons, sometimes they're for wonderful, wonderful reasons, health issues, sometimes that would be a bad one, but having triplets would be maybe a good one. Maybe. I have twins, so it's like, it was a little stressful for a little while, but you always come through these seasons out on the other side. And then that's when you get to do a reboot. So it might not look like you thought it would. You might not be working within the timing that you thought you would. And a lot of people get frustrated. They're not where they want to be. Gee, if it was 10 years ago, I could have done better. Or I wish I was farther along with my savings or my goals or things like that financially. But that's not a reason to beat yourself up. It's a reason to get help and get on track. So that just means that you started out in Los Angeles and you were trying to get to Seattle and you're in Albuquerque. You're still going to get to Seattle. It just might not be the quickest route that it could have been because something happened. You got off course. You just get back on course, keep going.
And I think this is actually a very good time also to talk about why you do what you do, which actually leads, we talked about, the wealth planning. We talked about who to talk to, some questions to ask, things to look forward to, or put in your future ahead. But I think what's also important is the legacy piece, right? If nothing else, let's talk about the legacy. But more importantly, I want folks to know about your legacy and why you're doing what you do.
Sure. Well, everybody has a legacy. That's the life print. After you're gone, it's what they knew about you, what they learned from you, what your life represented. So we all have it. It's either on purpose or accidental. And I think most people live their life and end up with a legacy that is accidental. It's just like, oh, that's what they did. That's who they were. And if you look at a graveyard, I like to go to the old graveyards and see the old stones and, the ones that write more about the people than, the years in the dash. It's just interesting, how they lived, how they died. But usually it just says they were a devoted father, mother, wife, child, they're like who they were in their family, like their birth order kind of thing, and who they married. We're a lot more than that. We're a lot more than what's on our headstone, right? We're a person with a life, with a heritage and stories and life lessons and impact we can have on other people, not only in our family and our community, around the world. Like we can all really make a difference. And when you're gone and somebody knows you for a person who made a difference in their life, to me, that's value. That's legacy. And that's not something you have to wait and leave. Like you don't just leave a legacy, you get to create it. What am I doing now to pour into other people's lives? How am I inspiring others? What am I doing to help other people get on the right course or change their course or make a difference or have a bigger ripple, right? In this world, those are the things that make legacy. That's what lights me up. And that's a big motivator for me in creating Money, Truth, and Life. I wanted to take all the stories that I have, all of the information, the knowledge, the experience, the wisdom that I have around money and financial things, and make sure that every church has it, every ministry has it, every business has it, every family has it, every parent or grandparent that wants their kids to do well with money and not make all those mistakes and have to reboot, sometimes several times. I want all that to be available. So part of my motivation is to make sure that's available. It's good information with no conflict of interest. There's nothing that you have to buy. There's nothing that you're going to end up getting from me where I get money from you, for doing it. There's no strings attached. It's just great information that will really help you in your life with your finances. And that makes me feel good. I was able to put this out into the world and I continue to do so, and I will as long as I can. that's part of my legacy.
I also would like for you to talk a little bit about your Money, Truth, and Life book, because that's a big part of your legacy as well too.
Mhm.
And I think it's also a game changer for a lot of folks. And I'm showing you guys this because this is still available. It's still a #1 bestseller for Judy. And I wouldn't do justice if we didn't talk about this too.
Yeah, it is a great book. Very simple. It's primer level. Well, I would say it starts at, kindergarten. It goes through graduate school with some concepts, but it's written to be just a very basic encyclopedia, what you need to know, and to give you enough knowledge to ask the right questions of your subject matter expert. If you're hiring an attorney, if you're hiring an accountant, if you have questions about building a business and what kind of entity should I have? Should I have a will or should I have a trust? And if I have a trust, what kind? And when does that benefit me? Either of those. All those things. Should I be invested in mutual funds? And if so, should I have so much equity? Not, all those questions can be answered in one simple book, which is Money, Truth, and Life. It goes through all 5 pillars of finance: the insurances, the legal entities, the cash flows and cash reserves, the investments. It goes through all of the areas of finance, and it covers them so you know enough to know what you need to know to ask the next questions. So that's right there for you. And thanks for asking about the book. It's doing really well. And I love that people give us feedback about, I read that chapter and I almost made that mistake. We were just about to do that. We're just about to invest that way or buy that thing or do that thing with real estate. And we read the book and then we were able to not go to Albuquerque. We were able to get on the 5 and go north to Seattle. So thanks for helping us not take that fork in the road, the wrong one. That's what that book's all about for me.
Awesome. And again, folks, we are talking about financial wealth planning and legacy. We currently are talking about legacy. I'm glad that Judy got to share a little bit of her legacy. And we just talked about the book, which is also part of that legacy. So if you want to learn more, get some additional free information, folks, visit Judy at judycopenbarger.com. And make sure that take some time, look at all the free resources that are available to you. Because you won't regret it. It's just going to save you a lot of time, headaches, and money in the long run, for sure. I know that we're getting closer to the end of the show, but I also want to make sure that you share with folks how you tie in the 4-H to your legacy.
Well, it's my way of giving back to help people, because some people need help. I think most people could use some planning or some a tax preparer or a tax expert in their life, or if there are times when you need attorneys for planning purposes, times when you need insurance subject matter experts for different purposes. When you do that, how do you find the right one? We don't have yellow pages anymore. For those of you under 50, you might not know what that is, but we used to have these big fat phone books and the yellow pages.
Do the walking, right?
That's right. Let your fingers do the walking. Yes. And so we don't have that anymore. Now we just Google. We have our phones. We do, beyond Google, there's like anything you'd ever want right there, in a little swipe. So how do you find the right person without doing that? Well, one thing I recommend is if you're looking for a financial professional in any financial arena, talk to your other professionals that get you. That's the heart part, the head part, the heart part. Ask them what other financial advisors, what other accountants, what other attorneys they work with that really have success, where the relationships with their clients are very satisfying and they get good results. Ask them rather than going to the water cooler or asking friends and family. Ask other professionals that would know them and know their work and how they go about doing their work. So I hope that answers your question, but I was right there.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. And I want to make sure that we tied it in also to that process. And folks, if you don't know about the process, watch the beginning of the show and watch our previous shows where we actually go a little bit more of a deep dive in what those 4-H are as well too. So, hey, guess what time it is? It's time for a Money Truth Challenge, right?
Let's do it. All right. So with pen and paper, here's your challenge. 3 things. The first thing, what is the gap? When you're thinking about your financial future, you're thinking about wealth management, you're thinking about the retirement you want, the outcome you want, the plan, the now, soon, later money. When you're thinking about that, where's the gap? What's missing? What do I need to add? What do I need to maybe take away, stop doing? Sometimes that's just as important. Where's the gap? What do I need to do differently? And the second thing is, how do I fill that gap? Do I need to add a professional? Do I need to look into getting a trust? Do I need to look into the 401k options at work? Or maybe there's insurance offered at work and I've never even looked at the book or read the stuff. Where's the gap? What could I do to improve my financial situation and planning? And then the third thing is take the next steps. Write down, pen and paper, write down the one most important thing that's going to help you fill that gap and be more successful in your financial life. And what can you do this week before Sunday night at 5 o'clock? What can you do to make your life better financially? That's your challenge.
That's one heck of a good challenge for sure. All right, folks, you've heard the challenge. This is another Money Truth challenge. Make sure that you're able to share some of your feedback with us. We would really appreciate that, just so we can make sure that we're sharing and answering your questions as well, too. I want to, again, welcome those that are just joining us. Unfortunately, you're at the tail end of our show, but make sure that you watch the replay because we did cover a lot of great information. Judy did share a lot of great wisdom regarding financial wealth planning and legacy as well, too. So as this week begins, Judy, any last parting words before we go?
Yeah, take the challenge. You know, everybody wants to. They think about it, they plan, and then life just gets busy and they don't take action. I want you to take the challenge, take action, and make your financial life better. Do something. That's my challenge for you.
All right, folks, remember, we are here every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Please join us, share our stream with friends. Make sure that you watch the replay. And again, if you are not following Judy, make sure you do so at judycopenbarger.com. There is a wealth of free resources, and you guys just need to get out there and when you have some downtime to make sure that you look at all these wisdom that's being given to you as part of Judy's legacy as well, too. Well, until next time, Judy, I will see you next week.
Thanks, Carlos.